Good evening, and welcome to Drie Bokke, a ball and BlitzBOD. I've already got my friends in here with me tonight. I'm not on my own, which is quite nice, actually, not too lonely. Before I introduce everybody, firstly, thank you, obviously, to Workshop 17 for allowing us to use this space and for the support they give us, and the amazing platform that I produce very average content out of. So thank you for that. Without further ado, let me introduce who we have on the show tonight. So, I don't know, it looks like it's to my right or to my left, I don't know. But Joandre sat slightly in the dark, eyes slightly glazed, but it is his 30th birthday, so we're going to let him off. Joandre is the social media manager for Highbury Media, which includes SA Cricket Mag and SA Rugby Mag, obviously the most important one. Down at the bottom there, where I can view, is Katua Lowe. She is a super sports journalist, journalist for Rugby Rocks, and of course has her own Instagram stuff. And you might even hear her on the radio telling you the sports news. And then Mr. Nick Archibald, a man who I first met whilst he was wearing a top hat, but that's probably a story for another day. And Mr. Marty's himself, now in his own right, an award-winning radio presenter. Good evening, everyone. How are we?
Good evening.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, thank you for having us.
Happy birthday, Andre. What a time. Well done.
What a time to be alive. Another day.
Let's try and get the best out of Joandre where we can. And start with the topic of, we've got rugby next week, mate. How's that feel?
Yes, that's so amazing having rugby back in South Africa. Listen, I've been a bit jealous of New Zealand, especially. No one really cares about Aussie rugby. But seeing that North versus South New Zealand game, it was absolutely amazing. And hopefully we can have the same, you know. It's green versus gold. Yes, we've got a whole lot of injuries, Pollard being out and Lewitt and all of them, but hopefully we can just have another spectacle in South Africa, and that is what I'm looking forward to.
Absolutely. Katua, what do you think of the setup that we're going for with the superheroes, which is new, but I think the green and gold game that Joandre just alluded to is quite interesting, especially if you're one of the 10 that gets left out.
Yes, what did they say in the press release? It's like an old schoolyard pick. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Dion David and Mozandile goes about picking it. It's going to, I don't know. I think you have to put your egos or whatever aside because it's up to the coaches. It's going to be really interesting drama to watch. I think the draft pick is going to be on SuperSport, so it's going to be cool to see what happens there. But I mean, it's exciting. Look at SA Rugby. Like after we heard we got kicked out of the Super Rugby by New Zealand, now we bring in this whole new thing they've not even done. So I mean, go Bokke. I'm very excited to see what. And also rugby over Christmas. Where are we even? This is Merry Christmas. I love this.
As a Brit, just talking about Boxing Day. Boxing Day is obviously a huge day of sport in the UK, and it also gives you the absolute license to get as drunk as you want watching sport. Trust me, you'll be drunker on Boxing Day than you will on Christmas Day. I promise you.
That is Boxing Day is the day when the Proteas actually kicked England's ass in cricket. Okay, so now we've got another one in rugby.
He has been drinking, hasn't he? Nick, question for you. My one concern, I'm not concerned because I'm not a Springbok fan, but my concern, if I was a Springbok fan, would be potentially going down to a rugby championship rather undercooked. And there's talks of, let's not call it a second string, maybe a bit of a mix of experience and youth. Are you worried about what could happen to a Springbok team going south?
100%. I am. In my opinion, it should never be happening. we haven't played enough rugby for the guys to be fit. And we know how it goes. You play one rugby match, you haven't had contact. And they spoke about it a lot, especially the Stormers were quite vocal about it when they couldn't have that contact, is your body's not ready for it. And then you have all the New Zealanders and Australians who've had, 10, 12 weeks of rugby behind them. And it's just going to go pear-shaped. So in my opinion, we shouldn't even be thinking about rugby championship, particularly even if we send a second string side. We're coming off a 2019 Rugby World Cup win. And in quite honesty, and no fault of their own, it's very likely going to be an embarrassment down in New Zealand or Australia. So it's, in my opinion, it shouldn't be happening. So I'm certainly worried if we do go.
Andre, you obviously work closely with a lot of journalists who obviously write for the publications that you do the media for. Is there any sort of inside track? You don't have to give us an exclusive, but is there a concern within Saru potentially? I'm playing on the. He's had a few beers, and
Be straightforward, Andy. Like, just tell us, bruh. Like, just.
Yeah, several.
Georgia, is there an inside track? Are Saru worried about it, let alone fans and players?
Well, I can't comment on Saru, but for me, I'm definitely concerned. If you send the box over to Australia or New Zealand or wherever the rugby championship's going to take place, one moment it's in Australia and the next moment it's in New Zealand. You never know. But for me, it's just like the world champions on their way to a hiding. For me, it's just like you'll have the box having played 2 or 3 weeks of rugby against teams that played 2 or 3 months of rugby. It's just not. It's not going to work. If the box take 50 points on there, then you go back to Jacques Nienaber saying, "Okay, listen, this guy doesn't know what he's doing." But that's not it. It's you cannot have people like Baden Barrett and all of those All Blacks. You saw that North versus South game in New Zealand. It was a damn
Unreal.
Yes.
Exactly. It was a brilliant experience, brilliant game against people that have two games beyond their names. You just can't have it. For me as a fan, I would rather have a full strength Currie Cup, seeing the Bulls against Western Province, against the Lions. I would rather have that than have the Springboks take 50 points against the All Blacks or have a 10-15 point loss against the Wallabies.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd love to see Saru and the authorities really aim to try and get fans back in for like knockout stages. That would be tremendous. That would be a huge win for us. But if the box were to go away, and probably a final question on rugby, which might put people off, is Andre Pollard, obviously out for a long time. So let's hypothetically say that you are going south. I said before the World Cup that if he'd have got injured, you'd have been in trouble because of the backup. And I think that's generally a fairly sort of common opinion in South Africa. Nick, who would you go for at 10 if we do travel south and go down there and play some rugby?
Well, I mean, I might have a killer whale in the background here, but I'm a Sharks fan. Lol. So for me,
he's going to say Kerwin.
Kerwin Bosch. I mean, just in my opinion, he's finally got the nod from Sean Everett, to play that fly position, which I watched him at schoolboy level. That is his position. He's a really great fly. He has a great boot. He's fast. He has good hands, and he's proven. I mean, Sharks were at the top of the Super Rugby overall table before it all got cancelled, and he's been at the forefront of how the Sharks play. And I think you do lose some size because Andre Pollard's a big man. If I'm not mistaken, he's something like 96 kilos. That is huge at fly. So you do lose that sort of, big presence in the number 10 jersey. But because he's had time, I would put him over Damien Willemse because he's had time to build as a fly half. So that would be my pick. But, you never know. With Kerwin Bosch, sometimes, you never know where he's going to be picked, which makes me really sad because I genuinely believe he's a fantastic fly and should be playing there.
Yeah, he's certainly one of the most improved players in Super Rugby. But Couture, Elton Yankees, has he got a case? Would he be miffed if he wasn't picked at starting 10? Or even are we putting someone like Franz Steyn in there?
Well, I don't know. I've not seen Jock coach and what his vibe is going to be with the Springboks. Maybe just build on obviously what Rassie laid out. But I mean, if I was him, I would take Elton to something like that. Hopefully we won't go. But I mean, if I would take Elton and then have Cohen as the backup to give him some games and experience before the Lions tour next year, because I mean, Elton is the more experienced in that position at the moment. So I don't, maybe I'm just a bit sentimental because I don't know how many years Elton has left, but I'll also give him a shot in the green and gold at 10 as starting, and then have Cohen as a backup. But I don't know. Also, I don't know how these Oaks are gonna feel after 6 months of basically not having contact. So I mean, we could have a brand new fly-off pop up in the green versus gold. So I don't know. But I would go with Elton, maybe with a more experienced pick, and then have Cohen as learn basically from him on it.
Yeah, from a coach's perspective, I'll get it out in a minute. Perspective, Jean-Andre. I suppose, do you now go, right, let's assume Andre doesn't make the Lions tour for complications or re-injury or whatever.
Don't say that.
I'm just saying.
I'm dying.
Listen, it didn't work in the it didn't work in the World Cup for me. So it's not going to work in the Lions tour, right? But Jordan, from a coaching perspective, like put yourself in Ninaba's shoes now. Do you try and go, right, I have to try loads of different people out, or do I say, right, Kerwin, Elton, whoever, Damien, you're my man for the next 9 months, and obviously work with the franchises and say, please play Damien Willemse at 10, or please play so and so at 10 constantly. Or are you going to mix it up and try different combinations?
Yeah, for me, you bring back Morné Steyn. He's the
Hey, he did it once, so you might as well do it again, eh?
One kick, he would get one kick.
No, Andy, for me, it's just like the one thing Kerwin needs to work on is his defense. Otherwise, he's the complete player. Well, that's in my professional opinion. Damien hasn't shown me enough game management to actually be like the box second fly off. With Elton, you've got a solid fly off. His kicking game is good. His kicking for post is good. But one thing that bothers me about Elton is his BMT. When the Lions made Super Rugby finals, he tended to disappear. But hopefully he can prove me wrong, because, like you said, if Andre got injured during the World Cup, Elton was our only choice. So for me, it's between Elton and Kerwin if Andre doesn't make it. But if Andre is fit, he needs to be our starting team.
Oh, 100%. I agree with that, unfortunately.
Honestly, best fly in the world. Bold statement.
What, Andre Pollard? Over Bowden? You're mad.
Bowden can't pick for post, he just...
Yeah, but Geordie...
That's why they had Geordie
can, and Geordie can get picked.
But definitely last year, I think Andre was definitely like at the pinnacle.
Yes.
Definitely in terms of fly, because for some odd reason, Bowden Barrett didn't play fly for New Zealand, and in my opinion, that should never happen.
Yeah, well, that definitely cost them. That side was never settled going into that World Cup, which was great for us. But there we go. Moving on to the main topic of tonight, and that is, we all work in some capacity within media or social media, content production, content management. Jean-Andre, from your side of things, you manage more content than you produce, I suppose. You manage accounts and, the biggest rugby publication in this country for sure. from the start of lockdown to the end of lockdown, have you seen a real shift in? Obviously, there's not as much match content out there, but have people become more creative in what they're doing, or do you feel like you're continually regurgitating the same story but just with different words?
Yeah, definitely, Andy. For us as a rugby mag, it was definitely a challenge. There was no rugby being played for a whole couple of months before New Zealand started up again. So we needed to keep the audience involved. You know, you need to get something out there to get the clicks through there, to get the people to actually talk about rugby, chat about, even if it was about the World Cup. So for us, it was definitely a challenge, but during that, doing all of those things, there's another couple of challenges coming with it, with World Rugby. How can I put it? Actually flagging things that we do for entertainment for the fans being as copyright or this or that. So we had a hoops to jump through to actually get our stuff out to the fans, just to actually promote the game. It's not for self. How can I put it? Afrikaans with it. It's a bit of a. It's not about self gain. It's about actually getting the fans involved.
Yeah, I mean, we'll jump around a bit on this, because I think we'll jump on this now. I was going to save it for later, but you're absolutely right on that. And Nick, as a content creator yourself, as an impressionist on Twitter,
I came to fame.
and couture as well. Okay, so I think that the probably the most high-profile case of this was probably Squid Rugby. So I don't know if you remember, a few years back, he went to battle with the Guinness Six Nations, and he went to battle with World Rugby, because his argument was that to make rugby a better product and a global appeal, then there's a million content producers out there who are not after money directly. They're after being able to produce the best content possible to grow the game. Yeah. World Rugby have since employed Squid Rugby, and he now does stuff for him, which probably tells its own story.
Yeah.
But the thing is, obviously, rugby isn't as big as, say, basketball. It isn't as big as football in the UK and even in this country to certain demographics. Okay, so I get it. Okay, you look at the Instagram followers of, say, Sia against the Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo. They're on a different stratosphere. But are we stifling rugby by not allowing really talented content producers to not use footage, essentially, and post-match, during the match, and pre-match, Nick?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I was going to say about basketball and stuff. I mean, the whole world over is now, not the whole world over, but certainly a lot of my friends, since we watched The Last Dance with Michael Jordan, like, basketball is just the thing. And I've certainly fallen in love with it. And you're 100% right. When you go into YouTube, there's, honestly, you can get the highlights of the NBA playoffs from maybe 40 to 60 different YouTube channels. That's the full highlights with commentary that's coming from ESPN or NBC, whoever they take from. And when it comes to rugby, you don't find that. You have to go to your certain media houses, and you have to wait a certain amount of time, and there's certain particular rights that comes with those media houses. So by making it available, I think it is very possible and very likely that we could have Sia Kolisi having as many followers, or having rugby have this huge following like Lionel Messi, like LeBron James, and like all these football stars, and whatever the case may be. But we 100% selling ourselves short, because in my opinion, rugby is the best game in the world. And I don't think anyone here would really argue that. You know, it's so fantastic. I mean, you know, you have a guy like Ches and Colby and Eben Etzebeth in the same team. I mean, you would never think that in any other sort of sport. So we're 100% selling ourselves short. And even, you know, with Squidge Rugby, like he's pretty much the only one that you could go to for this sort of content surrounding rugby. And it is certainly a sad thing.
Couture, do you feel similar to that? I mean, like, I suppose the other thing on the table here is, and the bigger picture is player coach accessibility, which I would say during lockdown has probably helped this show thrive. I'm not going to lie. It's been like people have been very, very willing. So twofold question for you: has the mindset changed or not of players and also franchises, because they can be quite difficult at times? And should we be allowed more access to the players without sort of having to jump through hoops to get to them, and not to catch them out, not to produce headlines, but to just humanize them? Because I feel that players have actually realized that humanizing themselves is a massive benefit to them as a, let's call it a brand, but like brand Khaleesi, let's call it that.
Yeah. I think that's the thing, is that in terms of the catching out, I think over the years since rugby has, you know, been a part of a South African setup or world setup, you know, I think they've always maybe feel sometimes they get, you know, attacked and whatever. So the media person, and I'm just like from the outside, that's what I'm kind of putting together. The media person is their protector, you know, against all the, you know, the lashing of the journalist or the tongue lashing of the journalist. But actually the journalist or the broadcaster or the content creators actually there just to chat, to get to know them and to humanize them. So I think the role of the media people at the franchises is making everything else not on purpose or aspres, so to say in Afrikaans. It's just it makes us all, you know, on the outside look scary. So the player automatically thinks they have to go through the media person, which is that's why I believe in the right way of doing things. I believe, you know, if you have to go to get a BOK, you go through the right channels just so you don't ruin a relationship, because that's also the thing. If you approach a player on its own, suddenly you blacked out from all the press conferences or whatever. So I mean, feels also a bit petty to an extent. But I think this has forced everyone. And in terms of the mindset, I think during lockdown they were forced to have that mindset, but I'm not sure if they are taking that mindset into the rest of their lives or their careers or their whatever. So I hope it's not just a once-off where we have access to the guys. I hope that it continues. I hope that they have forced themselves, the unions, to look at their social media strategies and approach to journalists a bit differently. I'm just worried that it was just a once-off and that it's not there yet. And it's sad because, you know, I think someone like the Sharks did it well. They posted these little videos of the guys dancing or whatever, humanizing them. But some unions didn't really, you know, embrace that time. So I'm just scared it's going to slip back into the old routine of, if you want an interview, you must go through the media manager and wait. So I don't know if it will pull through. I hope it does, but I think social media in South Africa in general, or the, you know, Instagram lives or Zoom or whatever, is quite new to us. So I don't know when we'll actually embrace it. Hopefully, this has forced the union's hands or whatever, but it's actually in their benefit, and I don't think they've cooked that.
Yeah, definitely.
In their benefit. Me chatting to Skara and Tabeni over an Instagram live, him laughing, him showing his dog, and then going into the deeper stuff or you know, of his, you know, previous injuries and his time as a rugby player. It helps rugby. It freaking makes them me and you. Like, I'm not ever going to be an elite athlete, but to get a glimpse it's so special, and it makes them even more lovable, if that term is not too girly for all of you, but I mean, it makes them
Listen, when Bongi was on our show cooking his lamb dinner, it was gold. It was absolute gold.
You're not taking away from their game. You're not taking away from the seriousness of rugby. You just highlighting it. It's a holistic approach, actually. I just wonder if the unions have actually made that shift or it was just a once-off. So holding thumbs, they've actually made that shift.
Yeah. And from a breaking news perspective, how difficult is that? Because obviously now you're probably going to go into a mindset, probably you and Nick here, like of, news is going to start breaking on rugby now, finally. How hard is it for you to say, I don't know, Elton Yankees does something up at the Lions or he gets injured or whatever? Is there like a barrier that just goes up and it's like, there's the press release, that's it? Because in other countries, you can go straight to the player. We can go straight to the coach. At least you can go to the coach because sometimes it's, the player doesn't want to talk for emotional reasons. So, is that still the case in this country? Is there still a barrier of getting breaking news stories?
Sorry, Nick, I'm just going to chip in there. Like it feels when there's a press conference, and I don't know, Jeandre, I assume you've been in millions of them as well. Is that it's like it's a business meeting suddenly, and it's not rugby anymore. It's like this and this and this. It's like and it's like the media manager introduces them. We know who it is. We can see them. You don't have to introduce them. You do that. It's very old school, and it does go a barrier up because if I'm going to sit in school and have to talk to the teacher, obviously I'm going to be different than to people who followed my career and know me very well. So I feel that something like that does bring a barrier, but I understand the formality of it, like it has to happen and whatever, but it needs a little bit of a shift here and there. It's not gonna ruin the game or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. I 100% agree. Like my big thing is like when something does break, you get that first media release, and I understand obviously the social media manager or media manager will get like 100 calls from around the country. But there is that barrier, and it's not all the time. There are some times when it's something like an injury or something, like they'll say, okay, no, we'll have a press conference in 3 days. So you break the story, and then it's the same story for 3-4 days, and you're like, but we have no more information. Is Andre playing for British and Irish Lions? Like, what is happening? So you want to know more, and it's just like Couture says, there is that sort of barrier, and I understand it because I'm also always all about formality. Like, you go to the bottom of the media release, and you have all three media managers, and you save all their numbers, and you know who to call. And I'm 100% about that. But at the same time, there's got to be a bit of give for give. If I say, okay, I really would like an interview. Okay, cool. Why don't we organize a Zoom conference with all the people, and we'll get the person who's the injury, and we'll have a quick chat with them. Just something a bit more, to move in a better direction as opposed to putting up a wall every time.
I think they've got to realise that unfortunately we're all a fickle bunch as well. If they're nice to us, we're generally nice back.
Exactly.
Like when I used to get a Twickenham, I get a pint of Guinness. They'd be lovely, nice 3-course meal. I'd always write nice stuff afterwards and tell them what it is. Jeandre, you must get a lot of frustration. But actually, from your perspective, because I've actually been out with you at a wine farm where you've had to jump into action because something. I don't think it was. I think it was cricket related at the time, but rugby related. For you personally, it must make life very difficult and volatile because you're constantly waiting for something, waiting for something. So, from your perspective, is there any sort of what would be the ideal change for you so that you can have more access to actually produce more? There's nothing worse than a headline and then you click on it and it goes, so-and-so has happened, more to follow.
Yeah.
Nothing irritates me more. Oh my God, it happened an hour ago. Why haven't you got more on it? And that's part of the world we live in with social media. We want that instant gratification. I get it. But I don't open a paper and then wait for the rest to appear like in Back to the Future. So from your perspective, are you just like constantly doing the same update 3 times, but with like an extra 3 lines? And what would you like? What could change that would make your life so much easier?
No, 100%, Andy. For us, it's just like let's say Peter Steff du Toit with his injury. So now there's breaking news. Peter Steff might be out for 6 months. So now we put out the article saying reports from Western Province or reports from Sport 24, reports from SA Rugby Mag or Rugby Rocks or whatever suggest that Pieter-Steph du Toit might be out for 6 months. So now we put all of that out and people click on it. It's like, okay, listen, he's the World Rugby Player of the Year. He might be out for 6 months. What's happening? So now 2 days afterwards, okay, Pieter-Steph du Toit has gone for scans. He might still be out for 6 months. And then 2 days after that, okay, cool, he's only out for 2 weeks. That's just for me as a fan, not as a journalist. Or I would like to, if I click on something, I see Pieter-Steph going down with an injury. It's like, oh shit, listen, he's sorry for the word, he's the World Rugby Player of the Year. He's one of my heroes. How long is he going to be out for? I don't want to have to go and click on 3, 4, 5, 6 articles to actually find out what the extent of his injury is. With the NFL, there's, if somebody gets an injury, okay, this person would say he might be out for 4 weeks, report to follow. The next Monday or Tuesday, it will say confirmed he's out for 2 months or 2 years or whatever. So for us as fans, just to be sure, okay, listen, my favorite rugby player, I won't see him on the field for another 6 months or another 2 weeks. We just want to know. There's all of the speculation is just, it's doing my head in, you know. It's not lacquer.
Yeah.
I agree with you. And I think Jacques' comment just came up there about clickbait. And I think one of the things that annoys me more than anything is exactly that. It's clickbait. It's people using stuff that happened 2 years ago, 3 years ago. These things and then you go on it and they've got like 130,000 followers, and you're like starting to cry yourself to sleep at night. How I suppose how do we govern that? How do we stop it? Because there's so much good content. It's lazy journalism, isn't it? It's lazy journalism, and people will put a headline. I know Jacques had commented there his favourite website is Rugby Onslaught because he bites every time. But I suppose should clickbait be governed or not? Nick?
I have no idea. I mean, I don't necessarily like clickbait, but I don't read for.
We know better, bro. Like
I know. Yeah, as a fan, I mean,
he does, and that's annoying.
Your heart sort of drops, and you're like, but
the clickbait caters for that Facebook auntie that doesn't want to do the research. So they have that clickbait's literally, I think, marketed towards a certain demographic. So
and it's all about clicks, and that's the thing, like especially with like Facebook and all these social media things, they aren't governed. I'm not going to get into the depths of Mark Zuckerberg and the Supreme Court in America about this and that. I don't care, but it's the truth. It's nothing is governed, and unfortunately, the hard part is. If we just think in terms of content, there is a lot of content going around, maybe not necessarily rugby related, but just in general, there's a lot of content throughout the world. But in all seriousness, there's also a lot of crap going on around the world. So you've got to, I think you as the viewer, you as the consumer have kind of got to almost govern yourself. Like, when a specific site's going to give you a lot of clickbait. You're never going to get an update from that certain situation. So I don't know. Maybe it's up to the consumer more than it's up to the creator.
Yeah. One of the things that an amazing article the other day that I read in Rugby World in the UK, actually, that one of the things missing in rugby at the moment is the lack of a global superstar to push brand rugby. We could argue that Sia may well be that, but I think without being too controversial, that some of that is because of the amazing stuff that he does off the pitch, not necessarily by setting the rugby field alight for 80 minutes. I'm not saying he's a poor rugby player by any means, but he's not as a rugby player in that bracket. I wouldn't say Colby, maybe Bowden if he carries on the way he does. But we don't have a Lomu. We don't have a Wilkinson or a Carter. We don't have a Habana at the moment. How badly, Couture, with your finger up there, does World Rugby need a global superstar to not be the spokesperson, but to bring people's attention? Because everyone loves a highlight reel, and there's a few players out there that we can produce highlight reels, but then we tend to watch the same one 20 times rather than watching 20 of the same people.
Okay, let me start. Like the difference between like a Wilkinson, a Lomu, or whatever, there was like even Habana back in the day there's an air of mystery around them. They're a legend. Like you can't touch them. They're not there. You don't have access to them. Now with social media and like everything going on and them posting themselves, you have access to them. So I don't think they feel as big as a Jonah Lomu or a Johnny Wilkinson, even though, yes, Johnny Wilkinson and Brian Habana are very active now, whatever, but I mean, they're not playing anymore. I just think there's more, the more access we have, the less mystery and like legendariness around them kind of disappears a bit, because I can just go on Instagram and see what Sia ate for supper. Or what Bowden Barrett, what gender his kid's going to be. Like, you know what I mean? It's all accessible. It's not like that weird that they're untouchable. They're right there, technically. So that's what I think. I think it's maybe not, we should have a mindset. I don't think we necessarily can have one global superstar anymore because they're so accessible in a way. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
No, I 100% agree. I think that it is something that I think is so great about where we're heading. Yes, we may not have that sort of global superstar, that LeBron James sort of like caliber, or Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, but like we know that, you know, Bowden and his wife are pregnant and they are expecting this child, and they have all these friends, and he plays golf, and we know the story about how his father and his uncle both played for Wellington, and he has, you know, there are these amazing stories. I think there is so many amazing stories that it does take away that legendariness, as you say, Couture, because like Bowden Barrett was the best rugby player in the world for like nearly 3 years, but he feels so human to us, which I think it's even better. Like I don't know Bowden at all, but I kind of feel like I do, which for me is amazing as a fan. So I don't think we'll ever have this sort of global superstar, because it's sort of like the mystique of what rugby used to be, or sport used to be. Nowadays, you know, you have what's his name? Not Julian. What's his name? Rico Ioane. Rico Ioane having like pretty much his own like YouTube channel where he interviews all the All Blacks players, and it's hilarious and it's accessible and it's really great. So I think that makes it quite hard to become this legend like this Johnny Wilkinson or Brian Habana sort of thing.
So we need to be careful what we wish for, I suppose, because here I am going, we want more accessibility.
Yeah, that's the thing.
We also want a global superstar, yeah. And I suppose we can probably blame Andre for some of this, because he obviously scours daily to find content. Obviously, you've found some amazing content over lockdown, haven't you? That's especially from this show. Thanks for that. But are you? What sort of content is out there at the moment that's actually getting real engagement, rather than just it is who it is and they're advertising a product, but they're doing something really cool moving forward, Andre?
Well, for me, it's like Nick now mentioned. He said that for me, it's like Adi Salvia with these podcasts.
What Ricky owned the
Yeah.
It's not Rico Ioane.
Yeah, he said Rico, but yeah, for me, it's it's something new that people would like to look at. Listen, you can only, for me as a Bok fan, I would watch that World Cup final over and over again. I know, Andy, you wouldn't. But
For
me,
enough.
unbelievable.
exactly, for me, seeing Mr. Cheslin Colby stepping Andy Farrell, Owen Farrell, who can't use his arms to tackle properly, you know. So
My Wi-Fi's going. I don't know what's happening.
for me, as a rugby fan, it's highlights will always be king, especially if it's like seeing super tries over, let's say, the past 20 years. Take the top 20 Super Rugby tries or the top 20 Springbok tries or World Cup tries. But that's where it becomes very difficult for me as a digital media person. So I try and put together a list of the top 20 tries in World Cups. So the first 2 weeks all will be good, and then World Rugby will come. Sorry, we are copywriting your stuff. We are taking down your channel. And then I have to actually go and fight to say, listen, I'm not doing this for my own benefit. I'm doing this for the fans. I'm doing this to get younger people, to get people that's sitting at home during lockdown, doing absolutely nothing, irritating their parents, irritating your brother or sister or whoever, just to get them involved into the game. So when the game gets back onto the tally, the people will actually be interested. They want to watch it. So something like Nick said, it might take a little bit away of people like Ardy being a bit more open to chat to All Black players that say where you come from. What ek geland het, the same with these breaking chains series, chatting to people. And for me as a fan, I love it. For me, it brings me closer to the person I see on the field. For me, Joost van der Westhuizen was my ultimate hero. As an 8-9-year-old kid, I looked up to him. He played for the Bulls. I'm a Bulls fan. So it's just like Joost was my ultimate. And back in the day, we never had that.
Exactly.
Now there's an opportunity for young fans to actually see, okay, listen, Joost loves to, his favorite drink in the morning is a cup of coffee, or his favorite restaurant is Wimpy or Spur or whatever. It's just something that we were not used to. And now there's a lot of opportunity for these personalities in sport to integrate that into their fans. And I would honestly, as a fan, definitely be who can I could say interested to know. Listen, Cheslin Colby's favorite movie is The Avengers or whatever, you know. It's just like, oh, cool. My favorite movie is The Avengers. I can relate to what Cheslin Colby is talking about. But yeah, it's a different. I know times has changed, but for me, it's for the good and not for the bad.
So would you rather have one global rugby superstar, or would you rather have 10 or 15 that are well recognized, well established, have a good following, and have a lot more people following them than one oak?
I think a businessman would answer that very differently to a fan. And that's probably where Joandre comes up against barriers with World Rugby and Super Rugby and the Guinness Premiership with Six Nations. Because you got to remember, these are independent organizations. So the Six Nations they don't report to anybody. They are who they are. They are the Six Nations. So therefore, their footage is theirs. They've sold it to a broadcaster. So why should everybody else use it? Whereas the fans' perspective is, this would grow the game, which would bring more interest, which means your rights would be worth a hell of a lot more than what you're getting paid for them now. So I think that's why one global superstar commercially helps a game. Maybe not even one, but maybe, a Kiwi, a Safa, and an Englishman maybe. Just
definitely not an Englishman. Definitely not an Englishman.
No,
I'm joking.
I would rather
half of them are from the islands anyway, so it's good. Half of them are South African, to be honest. It's fine.
Yeah.
But that would push the brand rugby. But as a fan, you obviously, you want content of Cheslin in his own house. You want to see Sia doing what he's doing. It's amazing, and yeah, it's such a difficult balance. But Nick, here's a left field one for you.
Goodness.
A fantastic rugby computer game. What would that do to World Rugby?
I have since Rugby 08, and that's
hang on, no. Let me just jump in. Nobody in the stream would beat me on Jonah Lomu Rugby on the PlayStation 1. I'm just saying.
Excuse me, Andy. Excuse me.
You hit a spot. You hit a spot.
This is happening. We need a live showdown.
Live stream. I think 100%. I mean, I've been calling for it since Rugby 08. I mean, that was my favorite game on planet Earth, and still remains that I've played every sport game you can think of, but that is 100% my favorite one of all time. And it made you. I mean, just from that game, I can name the starting lineup, and I won't do it now. But I mean, I could if you wanted me to. The starting lineup for the Rugby World Cup final 2007. I was 10 years old. But because of that game, I know every player. I know, you know what I mean? So it was huge at the time. I was speaking about NBA a little bit earlier. I played 2K20, which is a huge hit. Everyone, since the last dance, I think their online sort of activity has increased, big time. And, you get to know the players, and you understand like what goes into certain sports, especially for people who don't understand rugby, but maybe we're a little bit interested by playing a game, like a video game or a computer game of that rugby. You're like, oh, flip. Okay, so Brian Abana, when we have a Legends game, Brian Abana was like the fastest wing on planet Earth at the time. Oh, look what I can do with Bode and Barrett. Oh, Sia Kolisi is just going to bounce everyone and then throw an outrageous offload. So you get to know the players and you get to know the game, and I think that is a huge shortfall, in my opinion, from World Rugby. Yeah. Because I've played the Jonah Lomu, and it was just the first one was. I'm not going to say too much, but I mean that rugby it would be really good. Yeah, it would be great. Yeah, it'll just grow it so much, and I think it's a great idea. I'm holding thumbs. I'll do it. I'm ready.
So we did well voting Beaumont in, not Pichot, Andre.
Yeah, Andy, for me, it's like, listen, rugby has been my be-all and end-all since I've been a little boy. So I got the first Jonah Lomu rugby game on PlayStation 1, and that's... You said you'll beat anyone, so I'll put the challenge out there. Andy and Nick,
YouTube Live.
and John has just commented there on Facebook. He's one of my best mates, and we played Jonah Lomu rugby since 6 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock the next morning. So that's
I got a shit degree level because of Jonah Lomu rugby. That's how committed I am.
Well, okay, I'll the commitment. But for me, the tragedy is there's not been a decent rugby game since Nick mentioned the Rugby 2008. And unfortunately, EA has not been involved in any rugby games after that. Yes, there's been other people that have, but it's not there. It's just like just remake 2008 on PS4.
Just make the graphics better. We hundreds. It's fine.
Give me that same game and I'll have it. I'll just give me an opportunity to change the names. Put Cheslin Colby on there, or Frans Steyn, or whoever, Put Sia Kolisi there leading the Boks to the World Cup. Just get that in there. But unfortunately, for me, it's just like America is not that into rugby. But if they were, I think the rest of the world would be in trouble, because the money that the USA can put behind any sport is ridiculous.
It's terrifying.
Well, if you put a 15s and a 7s format on the same game, oh my.
Yep.
Oh my. Get it. But I was also going to say, like, I mean, that's also something that Formula One have done really well. You know, Formula One, we used to have like Gran Turismo and Need for Speed, and where there were like all these like different car sort of games. And then when Formula One, I don't know when it came out first, but I know it's really popular. Now they have a Formula E series, or I think it's Formula E series, but the online thing, and they have actual teams. I mean, guys are like kitted out in these Red Bull racing boots and everything, and helmets. They don't have helmets, but I mean, they have the full gear, and it's actual teams, but it grows the sport because you watch this guy win in a Red Bull car, and then you want to watch Max Verstappen on the weekend. So there's definitely something missing there in terms of rugby if they want to grow the global game.
But also, what a Formula One is good because it's also an inaccessible sport because it's there. There's only 21 seats available at any one time, and it's usually the same oaks that are rotated. But I mean, what they did well also during this lockdown is they let actually Max Verstappen play against or drive against gamers and stuff. I mean, that crossover. Why can't Sia Khaleesi play against Genre or Nick's dad? You know what I mean? It's like it makes it more, and also it's entertainment value because how does Max react when there's not people in his ear or whatever? So rugby can take some notes, I think, in that. And I think because rugby is not the sport globally, and maybe doesn't have the money that Formula One or a soccer in general has, that maybe they just need to still get there. But I think they can.
So my final question to wrap this up. I'm going to start with Nick, who has obviously started his own new company recently, Squash Banana Content Producers. Congratulations. So firstly, tell us about that venture. But secondly, tell us about the future. Where are we heading with social media and content production? Not just like with accessibility of players, but if you look at people like, by the way, anyone listening, if you don't follow Bristol Bears Rugby Twitter page, you have to, because it is so good. And go and look back at it. The guys and girls down there doing the most amazing stuff.
Following up.
No, honestly, there's one involving Ricky Gervais in The Office and Sammy Randrada.
Sorry.
But where are we heading with sort of innovation and the type of stuff that we as consumers want to see?
I think one of the best examples is the Rugby World Cup last year. Not only did we have all those sort of updates from Squid Rugby, but I don't know who ran it. Someone showed me who was running the social media for the Rugby World Cup. But it was absolutely fantastic because it made rugby not let's analyze this kick. He hit it so perfectly, and this guy caught it, and it was a great try. But it was like just these hilarious sort of reactions, and it created this sort of buzz around rugby. And I think that's really the fun part about social media, is that almost anything goes. And if something doesn't go right, you just go left because you might as well just do it, So I'm really excited about, sort of content producers being social media managers, because you can, once rugby starts to become more accessible, you can do, things like phone, Uncle Gerald who's watching the game in, I don't know, the Western Cape, and you're like, hey, here's a clip, I want you to commentate over it, and then we're going to post that. And they're going to have so much fun, and the fans are going to be involved, and it creates that sort of excitement. So I think we are heading into a more informal way of promoting sports and promoting sports personalities, which, like we said earlier, makes them more human. But at the same time, it's already give for give. It's got to be content creators and the infrastructure of businesses being, okay, cool, let's have some fun when we're marketing our company, because no one really reacts to the old age sort of marketing, like here's a nice little write-up with a olden day voiceover and a little song in the background.
Same question, but let's talk in stadium. We all love Varsity Cup, and we all love to watch we all love to watch a burger being built on the field, and Nick running around like a lunatic. But in stadium now, because of the stoppages in professional rugby, and every rugby ground that I've worked in or been to, they call it, they refer to it now as an experience, not so much just a match. Where are we heading? I mean, I can't imagine someone building a burger in the middle of Newlands, or can I? Probably can, actually.
You definitely can.
One of my favourite things is the kicking feed coming on in that little DHL, man. Man, I love it. I'm so jealous of that person. Where is stadium experience going to move forward, or are we already on the right track with that? And also with what you do with the interview and post-match and stuff, can you see that changing at all, apart from holding an incredibly long microphone because you're not allowed within 2 meters?
I love Varsity Cup, and I really think that Currie Cup, even Super Rugby, can learn from that in-stadium experience. It's just so much chies. There's no embellishment. It's just chies. Like, I remember as a first year having FOMO if I was not at that match. Why? Like, it's not just because of the rugby that was coming from East London. There was fuck all and was London. Like, I actually see humans doing things is amazing. But just that it's FOMO, it's the chies, and I really think, and it's not big things. It's I think maybe the unions or stadiums are overthinking it, that they need a lot to make, but a little goes a long way. Like, a good with some good chies songs at the right time, or a good halftime thing that is not the same as it's been for 20 years, because guess what, like, there are different people now and they're different walks of life now. So like, just little things, but I think they should. I don't know if they're going to, but I think even just looking at the sevens here at the Greenpoint Stadium, I mean, that's also a lot of fun, and it doesn't take away from the rugby. I think just people think, maybe the guys in charge think that if they bring in a guy dressed as Michael Jackson's, like an impersonator, that takes away from the game. It doesn't. There's enough analysis. There's enough people going to talk about watching the tackles, watching, who's making what and doing what all flows and whatever. Everyone's watching that. But you have to cater for, I see it as a family. Like, you're catering for mom and dad, for the kids, for uncle, women, tani, oma and opa, so it should be changing. I don't know if it's going to. I hope that they're not thinking Varsity Cup is there and they can't touch that. But I think Francois Pienaar did a good job by actually going to America, watching those city football games and seeing how Monday night football is done, and bringing some of those concepts to South Africa. I mean, nothing in this world is new. It's just how you recycle it and adapt it to your environment. So I think that's, because otherwise we're not going to get people in the stadium. Because if I can sit on my couch and watch a Super Rugby match, why am I going to go to the stadium if I get like?
Yeah, I think part of it is, I mean, look at Sweet Caroline. What a comeback that made. But I actually think some of it's engagement in the breaks of play. That's probably the most important aspect for me, is keeping people engaged when there's an injury, when there's 8 reset scrums, so they don't, because at Twickenham or any big stadium like this, constantly dodging the guys going to get pints or whatever, which is fine because I've been that guy. Like, I'm not a hypocrite, but at the same time, like, you start losing track of the game. But Jean-Andre, for you, where, like, you've obviously got to evolve with the times as a social media manager, where do you see the future going with content, not with creation, but management, along with timing, how much you're supposed to be putting out there, what sort of content you're supposed to be putting out there? Is it evolving constantly, or are you just waiting for trends?
No, definitely, Andy. Things you need to evolve with the times. It's one day quizzes could be the best thing. The other day videos could be the next best thing. You need to evolve with the times, but you also need to listen to your audience. For me, that's the most important thing. You need to do what your audience wants, and if that is highlights or up-to-date reporting or whatever, you need to produce what your audience wants. It's no point in putting out 50 stories a day, but only 5 of them actually gets read. For me, as a fan, I actually want to, for me, that's the thing. If I see something newsworthy and I'm like, okay, listen, as a fan, I would actually like to read that. Then we put that on the website. It's no point in putting something up like Elton Yankees, he changed his tire this morning. Okay, well, cool. That's every human being, me as a...
Yeah, but I guarantee somebody was filming that. I guarantee you somebody was filming it.
Got a flat tire this morning, I changed my tire. But for me as a fan, I wouldn't be interested in knowing that, okay, geez, okay, so Elton knows how to change a tire. Good for him. But as a fan, I'm not enticed by that. I would not click on that. For me, it's just like, we need to keep the people entertained. And for millennials out there, they cannot watch a video for more than 2 minutes if it doesn't interest them.
You said millennial, right to go.
Can I just comment, Andre, how Genre is clearly a very, very big rugby fan, because even the way he answers you, Andy, is classic rugby. Like if you answer a question, nee, jy's reg, Andy, you're right, 100%. Classic post-match interview.
Stick your employer up.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Guys, what an amazing chat. Unbelievable chat. Really enjoyed it. I feel like we put the worlds to rights. Nick, get onto High Tech. Tell them they need to sponsor a Jonah Lomu tournament.
I'll phone them right now.
It has to happen. Definitely. We'll even do it. We'll reel in the big screen at the DC and play it on that. Imagine.
Imagine.
Guys, thank you so much for your time tonight and for your expert analysis. And Andre, thank you for reading the Media Handbook 1.0 to us all night. That was great. I tried my hardest, but you're allowed to stitch out. But as cheesy as it is, it would be remiss of me not to ask Hugh Bladen just to tell us how good he thought tonight's show was.
Well, Angie, I mean, it was absolutely unbelievable. It kind of started out wide and then came back through up into the middle with the forwards. It was Luat Tiago who took it over the halfway line, and then for some odd reason, Elton Yankees was playing 10 and Andre Pollard was playing 12 because he's big enough. Why is he's absolutely fantastic? Pollard went out with the ball, Cheslin Colby out wide. Colby takes the ball inside to Makazolo Mapimpi, and Apalela Fashu's come onto the field because he's absolutely brilliant. Goes over! And that was the conversation.
Who's Luat de Jager between the four of us?
No one. No one's Luat de Jager.
Listen, Isaac, I can't follow that. There's no way I can follow that. So all I'm going to say is, good night, people. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Cheers.
Cheers, everyone.